Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the service of the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Grand Traverse. I am Beth Strawbridge and I serve this congregation as a member of the Sunday Services Committee. Welcome to you, old friends and new, young and old, here in the sanctuary or live streaming from home. You are an essential part of our service today. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. Do we have any visitors this morning who would feel comfortable introducing themselves?
Good morning. My name is Linda, and I'm here from Cadillac, worshiping with the kindness this morning. Happy Easter.
Welcome, Linda. Anyone else? We always enjoy getting to know new people, so please join us for fellowship after the service. And you or anyone else who wants to be identified as a visitor or a returning person, please take a yellow mug so that we can identify you and greet you at that time. Sharing our joys and concerns helps us stay connected in caring and in celebration. For those of you here in the sanctuary, there's a book to your left, to my right, where you can enter your message during the prelude. Your joys and concerns will be read by Reverend Alex later in the service, so we do encourage you to write legibly. To express those joys or sorrows that you may be holding quietly in your hearts, you are invited to light a candle there at any point during the service. We are about to enter sacred time. As we start our service, I invite you to set aside the busyness of your daily life. Please turn off your cell phones so that we might bring our full attention to this time together. Center yourselves as we listen to music performed by Anne-Marie Jones and Matthew Valdi-Bias.
What, is there something on my face? Whoever you are and wherever you are in life's journey, you are welcome here with us this morning. I'm Reverend Alex, your senior minister here at UUCGT. I use he and him pronouns. And welcome to this earthy Easter Sunday. As we settle in, I invite you to hear these words from the Reverend Dr. Liz Strong. Out of the earth rises light, rises life, rises spring. May we join with the miracle that is springtime and enter into life with lightness and joy. Out of the Spirit rises faith, rises hope, and rises love. May we join with the miracle that is Easter time and enter into life with hope and love. Let us resurrect with spring. Let us resurrect with the Spirit and enter into renewed life as we gather into our time of worship together this Easter morning. And so come, let us gather together and worship this morning.
Now is the time in our service when we'll be lighting our flaming chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism and our faith in connections to one another and the earth. As we light our chalice, I'll share these words by Jennifer McLaughlin. Just as the first hint of green begins to peek through the barren ground, and that little sprig grows into a stalk and forms a bud, and as that bud opens more and more each day to form a yellow daffodil or a colorful tulip, let us, like that first hint of green, be renewed by the warmth of the sun's rays, ready to emerge with a new energy. We light our chalice to bring a glimmer of warmth to that space. In our commitment as a welcoming congregation in the UUA, we also light this candle to honor Trans Day of Visibility this Sunday. May we create both a community and a world that welcomes each of us to be the fullest expression of ourselves that we can be. And now let us sound our singing bowl as we enter into a time of silence.
Join us in singing Wake Now My Senses, number 298 in your hymnal. This morning we will be singing verses 1, 3, and 5.
Wake now my
senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep it the web of creation, your vow. Giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Please join me in singing the children's benediction. Go in joy, go in peace to meet the day. With open hearts embrace life's wonder. We will guide you, we will love you on your way.
Our stewardship touches those within and reaches beyond these walls. Our offerings especially reflect our commitment to our UU principles: respect for the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and pursuit of justice, equity, and compassion in all human relations. The baskets that will be passed in our sanctuary have two sides: one for support of our staff and maintenance of our building, and the other to support our wider mission in our community. Here are other ways you can express your generosity. You can mail a check to the congregation, you can visit the UUCGT website, and you can give through the Vanco mobile giving app. All gifts, large and small, are received with gratitude.
It's now the time in our service to name and hold the joys and concerns that mark our lives, the moments and milestones that happen that we know that we must hold together while we are gathered. I'll be sharing a few that have been offered up for us to hold. If you have a joy or concern that remains a bit too raw or tender on your heart to share with us in our service this morning, you're always invited to reach out to myself or to a member of our congregational care team to light a candle at any point, or to simply hold it on your heart as you are held in the love that abides here. None of us is ever meant to travel life's journey alone. So if you would join me, please, in opening up your hearts as we hold these joys and concerns. Please lift Lynn, Mark Dragovich's mom, in your thoughts as she is recovering and as she is facing foot surgery and a very long recovery. So please hold Lynn in your healing thoughts. From Anne Sweeney, grateful for spring. It has been a long semi-winter. From Joy Platterbors, sending big hugs to Nancy Fraser and keeping her in our thoughts. Please lift up John Gendula and his family as they are in Texas for continued treatment for cancer. Also, I share a concern this morning from Misty Sheehan, who is in the hospital. If you would please hold her in light and in your healing thoughts. She urgently needs assistance with a couple of things if somebody's available. One thing is checking up on her kitty friends at home and making sure they're okay. And also if somebody's able to bring her her phone charger. She needs her phone charger while she's in the hospital. I don't have more information at this time, but if you know Misty and you're comfortable reaching out to her, please do so and hold her on your heart. And now let us just hold a space for all the joys and concerns that remain on our hearts. And in this tender space, let us join one another in a spirit of meditation and prayer, finding a rhythm for your breath, in and out, in and out. Rest into this moment as we join one another. I invite you to sit with these words by the Reverend Victoria Weinstein, titled Being the Resurrection. The stone has got to be rolled back from the tomb again and again every year. Roll up your sleeves. He's not coming back, you know. He's not coming back unless it is we who rise for him. We who lay healing hands on the reviled and rejected like he did. We who rage for righteousness with his insistent voice. We who love the sinner, even knowing that the sinner is no farther off than our own heartbeat. He will not be back to join us at this table to share God's extravagant banquet, God's love feast, where all are invited to come as they are. And so it is you and I who must feast for him. You and I who must say the grace and break the bread and pass it to the left and pour the wine and pass it to the right. To treat each other so tenderly as though just this morning we have made the personal effort to make it back from heaven or from hell, but certainly from death, to be by our side. Because if by some miracle, and why not a miracle, he did come back, wouldn't he want us to see us like this? Wouldn't it be a miracle to live for just one day so that if he did, by some amazing feat, come riding into town, he could take a look around and say, "This is what I meant." And we could say, "It took us a long time, but we finally figured it out." Oh, let us live to make it so. You, everyone, you are the resurrection and the life. Amen. Let us now join in singing Spirit of Life, number 123.
Come unto
Our reading this morning is a passage from the book The Flowering Wand, Rewilding the Sacred Masculine by the author Sophie Strand. In this passage, Strand recounts the Easter story through an imagined encounter between Jesus and some other Greek mythological figures after his death, namely Dionysus, Attis, Adonis, Orpheus, and the Minotaur. She writes, "He wakes to the pungent smell of spikenard, aloe, and myrrh. He feels a cold tightness in his chest, as if he had swallowed a shard of ice. It is dark in the limestone tomb. Something soft as a moth wing has been draped across his eyes. It takes him a long time to remember that he is dead. Never again will he see his little sister Yael. Never again will he stand on the shore of the Jordan watching a kingfisher pierce the molten gold of the river's surface. Never again will he see his wife. He had just begun teaching in earnest, just had felt his confidence poking up from the dirt like a green crocus nub. Oh, if he could move, he would howl. He would tear out his hair. All of a sudden, he hears a grunt, a cheer. Someone laughs, and then people stream into the tomb. I need help unwrapping him, he hears a melodious voice command. He is tossed by strong hands, pulled out of his shroud. Finally, he is awake. He sits up, looking at the group. The man who leads them is tall and lanky. Vines snake around his slender waist, and his lips are as red as poppies. Behind him, a boy with auburn hair and wide green eyes smiles shyly, holding a lyre. Two beautiful men who seem wounded stand nearby, supporting each other. And then, the strangest of them all is a man with bull horns, a smooth blue face, and yellow eyes. Here, drink, you'll need strength, the tall leader commands, offering him a cup of wine. It shoots straight to his tailbone. Jesus stands up. The young man with the lyre begins to play with the liquidity of a river. He is crying. His tears fall to the ground and turn into rosemary sprigs. The men usher Jesus from the tomb into the moon-hushed light. He is weak. He can hardly walk. He wants to cry, to speak, but he finds he can't. They walk away from Jerusalem until they reach a field wet with freshly dug earth. It takes a moment for his eyes to adjust. Jesus sees that there are huge holes dug into the mud. Here, you're first, the tall man says to the bull-horned man, who gently eases into the first hole. The leader pours wine in after him, a handful of anemones, some seeds. Then the other men slowly bury him. Attis and Adonis, you're next. Pomegranates and mead, wheat and wild roses. The two injured men are buried together, braided together with rose vines. And then it is the tearful musician's turn. It is time, the tall man says to Jesus. He pours the last of the wine into the last hole and then climbs in, holding up a hand so that Jesus can join him. Once in the hole, Jesus can smell wood smoke and lavender. He feels hands pressing into his wounded palms. How long will it take for us to bloom again? Jesus asks as they sink deeper into the earth. Oh, I expect it will be a long time, thousands of years perhaps, Dionysus answers with a smile. But when we come back, we won't be wounded or alone. We will flower all at once and make the entire earth a garden.
Now, how's that for an Easter story? I expect some of you might be feeling a bit confused with this whole encounter. Jesus meets Dionysus, meets the Minotaur, and so on. Not to mention the ending where, one by one, they are each buried in the earth, awaiting their flowering once again. I hope that none of you came to church today for the traditional Easter story, because that's not what you're going to get. You might have gathered that by now. Though what you will perhaps get are some new stories, stories that are truer to the earth-based teacher who spoke in parables about animals and plants, a teacher who beheld the wonder found all over the earth, including the beauty found in the humanity between you and me. New stories that show us an earthy Jesus rather than a sky Jesus who is removed from the natural cycles of birth and death, of growth and decay. We'll be unpacking the significance of this scene, as well as the significance of each of their burials. But before we get there, we need to understand some basic things about the Easter story and what is true of all the stories we tell and have inherited from past lives and generations. The author Sophie Strand offers us a novel take on stories and mythologies in her book, The Flowering Wand, Rewilding the Sacred Masculine. I have to give a quick nod of thanks to Kat Norman. Thank you, Kat, for suggesting this book to me. It really is a fascinating read, and I invite you to check it out if you're intrigued by a little bit of what you've heard. In this book, Strand defines how stories and myths are developed, comparing them to the ecological metaphor of fungi, of both mushrooms and mycelium. Just as mushrooms are the above-ground manifestations of their underground networks, so too are myths the emergence of what she calls the mythic mycelium. Just pause to think about that for a moment. The stories and myths that we tell are this outpouring, an emergence of our underlying cosmologies and worldviews. Even inherited stories from prior societies and worlds are continuously applied to our world and society today. This analogy also goes a bit deeper. Myths and stories are not just these passive emergences like mushrooms along the forest floor. They also teach us about our world and our place in it. From this mythic mycelium, we are taught how to relate to the natural world, as well as how to relate to both our ecological and our social spheres across our lives. We need these stories to help us understand our place in the world and how we relate to one another and to our natural environment. And herein lies our central problem. The modern stories we tell are what Strand calls a narrative dysbiosis. That is, our stories are limited in how we teach our men to be healthy and wholehearted members of society, and that our stories, too, remain void of our connections to the natural world. This gulf only grows wider as we navigate an increasingly digital and concrete society, leaving us to wonder where we can still find ourselves amidst nature today. We see this clearly in the character of Jesus. The traditional story we tell on Easter is one that is removed from ecology, a story of an enemy of empire and religious fanaticism who died in flesh and was resurrected in 3 days. His body disappeared and ascended into heaven, no longer connected to the natural dying processes of earth. Again, barring Strand's approach to these stories, it's understandable where we got this Jesus of sky versus a Jesus of the earth. In a time of great religious trauma following Jesus' execution, in a time of persecution and grief for early Christians, accepting the finality of Jesus' dead and broken body felt inconsistent with the living Christ they believed in. Jesus couldn't die, His mission was far too great, bringing about this upside-down kingdom where the last are first and the oppressed go free. A radical and new community that was both multicultural and multi-faith, where the table was set and open for all in our relationships to both one another and to a sense of love that is far greater than all of us. The God Yahweh of the Hebrew Bible is also a God of the sky, a God removed and apart from the world, hovering over it rather than being embodied within it. So from this, we see the mythological emergence of an Easter story of a bodily resurrection over a bodily decomposition. Jesus can't be dead. We must tell of his aliveness. We cannot bring ourselves to look upon his dead and broken body. I want to offer you a few other vantage points that showcase an ecological Jesus of Easter. Not a resurrected Jesus who ascended into heaven, but a Jesus who returns to the earth to complete the cycles of death and renewal. Through this, I hope you can gain a new story for the mythic mycelium of your own life, a story that is composted and renewed in ways that better serve us and teach us what it means to be earthly beings who are inexorably linked to one another and to our natural world. And so I invoke Victoria Weinstein's words once again. He's not coming back, you know. At least not in the ways we might expect. The first of these stories is to understand Jesus as a mythic blend from other stories, particularly the blending of Jesus with the Greek god Dionysus. In the early church, you don't have to look far to see how followers of Dionysus shaped and sculpted Jesus alongside their conversions to early Christianity. Let's see. Who else do we know was called the true vine, someone who shared wine with his followers and even enjoyed a good meal and dinner party from time to time? The answer is Dionysus. Informed by their earth-based faith, the stories we read of Jesus' miracles emulate the miracles of Dionysus. In the Gospel of John, we hear about the wedding at Cana, where Jesus is said to have transformed water into wine. Do you know that one? This story parallels the telling of Dionysus' miracle, where in the ancient Greek district of Elis, stone jars of water are magically transformed into wine overnight. Some classicists have linked Jesus as a new story and take on an older God, an attempt to paint the Gospels with familiar stories and themes that would have been easily recognizable to early converts to Christianity. So the same Jesus of Easter might also be understood as the Dionysus of Easter, and if so, we're going to have to launch a major marketing campaign if we're ever going to get this sorted out right. Jesus and Dionysus' stories intersect as one, forming a new telling and relationship. Jesus of Easter must also be a Jesus of wine and revelry, a Jesus rooted in the earth and the lush vegetation of first century Galilee. Dionysus has much to offer Jesus in restoring his connection to the earth. And so Jesus is basically Dionysus. They are one and the same and forming a new story. See, I told you this wasn't going to be your typical Easter sermon. Next, I want to turn to Jesus' earth-based parables, of which all of his teachings were ecological in nature. Take, for example, the parable of the sower, a story of a farmer planting seeds and scattering them along a path, along rocky and thorny grounds. Some seeds fall on good soil and take root and bring forth this much anticipated grain. What we see here is Jesus' explanation of the wild, intuitive pollination of birds and animals, not really a teaching on industrial farming. Take also Jesus' teachings on mustard seeds. Have any of you ever held or seen a mustard seed? We're talking a seed so small that you might miss it resting on the tip of your finger. Mustard, especially black mustard in this region, was regarded as a weed, one that was fast-growing and could overtake even whole fields. It would be impossible to root out mustard altogether, as it would inevitably shoot up again, even after a thorough weeding. Jesus' teaching is another one related to ecology, that even with faith as small and tiny as a mustard seed, the radical inclusive community that Jesus taught about was inevitable, even in the face of bleak times. Just like mustard, the upside-down kingdom couldn't be weeded out. It only takes a little faith for it to germinate, propagate, and inspire hope once again. Jesus was not God become man who was removed from the natural world. He was a teacher of ecology, inviting us to rewild our lives with glimpses of a new kind of society that we could truly create together if we believed and lived into it hard enough. So that's what I call eco-Jesus. Jesus as a teacher of ecology and compost, a Jesus that shows us our embodiment and our rootedness in the natural world, not our far removal from it. Lastly, I want to turn to another facet of Jesus' teachings, what Strand calls the kingdom of astonishment. This goes without saying, but those early followers of Jesus were quite diverse and varied in their beliefs about him. The Gnostics, as they are known, were a group of early Christians who leaned on more mystical understandings of Jesus that were rooted in the earth rather than Jesus' divinity and separateness from a human and earthly experience. There are many Gospels that were intentionally excluded from the collection of texts that we know as the Bible, many of which were authored by these early Gnostics. A Romanized Jesus is one that shows us a kingdom that is always out of reach, a separate place that is far off beyond our grasp. A Gnostic Jesus shows us a different one, a Jesus who is playful and at times even a bit of a trickster. A Jesus who tells us that the magic of miracles is indeed real, even if we find it laughable to believe in the magic stories and myths of our ancestors. From the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas, we gain a complex view of Jesus, one that speaks to us in disjointed parables and teachings that are oftentimes pretty contradictory. This Jesus invites us to experience a different creation, one that is not removed from magic and miracles, but is made of it. The delight we find in the colors of autumn leaves, the wonder we experience looking up at the night sky, feeling so small in this expansive universe of ours and in the grand scheme of all things. This is not an astonishment that is individual. It is a wonder that results from our experience and participation in the world around us. This Jesus of Thomas's gospel tells us what you are looking for has come. The kingdom is here. Magic and miracles are all around us. All we have to do is open ourselves enough to see them. To close, let's go back to that encounter between Jesus and the mythological figures of old. With the stories and tellings of who we say he was, an embodied Jesus is companioned by these figures and is finally laid to rest in the earth. His wounded hands are intertwined with Dionysus's as they sink deeper and deeper into the earth. We glimpse a familiar Easter story of resurrection and ascension, but it has been made new. We see a moment where nature's cycles are restored, when Jesus is finally laid in the ground and allowed to decompose and decay. How long will it take for us to bloom again, Jesus asks. Oh, I expect it will be a long time, Dionysus responds with a smile. But when we come back, we will flower all at once and make the entire earth a garden. A renewed Jesus of Easter is one that invites us to be his eyes and hands, a Jesus that mixes and melds with the mythic mycelium of today, a Jesus that invites us to return to the earth, not to float apart from it or above it, to cherish and defend this sacred planet we call home. A Jesus that we return to the compost pile of stories, like we do with all of our stories as they shift and change to meet the world and society of each moment. Ultimately, The Christian message is that there is a love beyond our wildest imaginings, a love that brings us into constant proximity with the sacred. The beauty and magic of nature and the beautiful depths of astonishment and wonder we find within every human being. The good news of Easter is this, that even when things look their bleakest, even when we feel the farthest from hope, love itself has the power to rise and grow again and transform the world. Like a tiny mustard seed or the microscopic spores of mushrooms, it only takes a little to change a lot. As we encounter the story of Jesus once again, let us find within it the earthly Christ, the defiant, troublemaking rabble-rouser who invited all of us into his sacred love affair with the natural world and with all of creation. Like mustard plants and spring flowers, love always springs up anew. Just you try and squash it. Happy Easter, everyone. Or maybe I should say, Hoppy Easter. I invite you now to rest in a brief moment of stillness. If you would please rise now in body or in spirit and join in singing our closing hymn, number 61, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again, found also in your gray hymnals. You will know this familiar Easter song, and so I invite you to enjoy these earth-based lyrics.
We extinguish the chalice at this time, but its light lives on in the minds and hearts and souls of each one of you. Carry that flame with you as you leave this place, and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially with those you have yet to meet.
I just have a couple of quick announcements before you hop on out of here and enjoy your Easter. I've got to use the puns while it lasts. Easter comes one time a year, folks. You'll be seeing these slippers again. Starting Points is fast approaching, so those of you interested, Starting Point is this great program we've done, I think one time before here at UUCGT, where folks of all different levels of engagement with UU, both those that have been around a while and those that are new, you're invited to kind of join a 4-part series where you get to explore all sorts of different questions in the journey of becoming UU and what that means. So if that's of interest to you, whatever your level, you can sign up with Chris Lautz. And also, if you're interested in having childcare for this event, please contact our DRE, Chelsea Bentley, and we can make sure that we can provide some childcare. Those dates are April 14th, 21, May 5th, and 12th. So check the flash if you want some more information on that. And just a brief note to say also that we'll be doing a special showing coming up on Saturday, April 20th, so in a little bit. It'll be from 4 to 6:30 p.m. It's a showing of the film Occupation of the American Mind. And so this is a film that takes a very important look at the way in which news about Israel and Palestine is presented here to the American public, and how it may influence the political environment for policymakers. So this film is produced by what is known as the Media Education Foundation and features many experienced Middle East observers and journalists. So if that's of interest to you, we'll be showing that Saturday, April 20th from 4 to 6:30 p.m. here in our sanctuary. I now invite you, as you feel willing and able, to rise and to join hands. We also have this wonderful gesture for those of you that are online and also here in person. This is the magical sign of please do not touch me. So we'll respect it. Maybe you're a bit too far to link hands, so feel free to also do this gesture as a way of joining up with the group here. And in the spirit of covenant, community, and commitment, in the spirit of eco-Jesus and an earthy Easter, may we be made ready to serve one another and to create the world we so desperately dream of. Go in peace, everyone, pass a squeeze, and enjoy your Easter. Happy Sunday.